For the first time in years, he felt not anger but fear. And he knew that tomorrow something would start that he couldn't stop. And tomorrow might never come, if he made a single mistake. The evening in his Manhattan penthouse was calm, almost sterile. The glass walls reflected the shimmering city, and below was a stream of yellow taxis that looked like golden insects. Gregory Lance, owner of the investment fund Lance Capital, was pouring glasses of 1989 Bordeaux. He was 52, and he had grown accustomed to the idea that life held no surprises anymore. The phone rang sharply, almost rudely, as if someone had deliberately wanted to break the atmosphere. "Mr. Lance," the voice was dry, without intonation. "We found your brother's body." Gregory squeezed his glass so hard that it almost cracked. "It's some kind of mistake. I don't have a brother." "You did." The pause seemed endless, and he didn't drown by chance. His brain, trained in financial schemes and cold calculations, suddenly became confused by simple words. He had never known that his father had another family. And now it turned out that this secret brother was dead. He rushed to the safe, pulled out old family documents. Yellowed photographs of his father standing with a strange boy on the beach. The boy was looking straight into the camera, his eyes had a strange, recognizable line in them, the same one he had in his own. The phone rang a second time. "We found something in his jacket pocket," the voice said. "An envelope. With your name and the date, tomorrow." Gregory felt the world shift beneath his feet. He had no more confidence left in knowing who he was. "Send it to me, immediately." A few minutes later he was standing at the window, holding an envelope that had been delivered by a courier. His fingers were shaking. Inside was a single sheet of paper. "What you call yours belongs to us. Trust no one on the board of directors." For the first time in years, he felt not anger but fear. And he knew that tomorrow something would begin that he would not be able to stop. And tomorrow might never come, if he made even one mistake. It had rained for the second day in a row, turning New York into a muddy reflection of itself. Gregory was sitting in a cheap motel on the outskirts of Queens. There were no security cameras, no concierges who could rent him out for a few $1,000s. He had left everything behind, his Brioni suits, his Patek Philippe watch, even his own name. He replayed the last words of the message in his head, "We've taken Alice." The phrase burned in him with a fire that kept him awake. All his life he had believed he could buy anything, but for the first time he understood that money was powerless. On the third night, there was a knock on the door. Twice. Then again, a rhythm he had heard long ago, as a child, when his father called to him from the street. Gregory opened the door, ready to see his enemy. Standing before him was a woman in her 40s, wearing a dark cloak, with wet hair and eyes that held too much truth. "You don't remember me," she said quietly. "But I remember your brother." She introduced herself as Sarah Keller, a journalist who had once worked on investigating the shadowy schemes of Lance Capital. "I didn't come for an interview," she added. "I came to save your daughter." She took a yellow folder from her bag. Inside were copies of documents, old photographs, bank statements with seals belonging to companies he had never heard of. "This is what your brother was trying to tell you." He exposed the group that financed the creation of Lance Capital. "And they're not just businessmen, Greg. This is a consortium that finances wars, bribes governments, destroys people who try to get out of the game. And you think I didn't know what I was making money from?" He smiled bitterly. "But I never thought they would come after my daughter." Sarah leaned closer. "They already thought you were dead. And this is your chance. But to do that, you have to do something you've been afraid of your whole life: stand up to them." She unfolded the last sheet, the offshore transfer plan, which led to a single name Gregory recognized instantly. It was Matthew Rhodes. His best friend. His godson for Alice. "If we make this data public," Sarah said, "they will lose control. But they will destroy us if we make even the slightest mistake. Gregory remained silent, staring out the window at the wet asphalt. The world he had spent decades building had turned out to be nothing more than a facade. And now, standing before him was a woman who had brought the key to a door that perhaps it would have been better never to open. He looked up. "I'm in the game. And this time, it wasn't for money." They worked at night, like two shadows. Sarah had brought an old laptop with no internet connection, so their eyes wouldn't see us in real time. The documents her brother had left behind turned out to be more than just compromising evidence, they were a detailed map of an underground empire. Every line of numbers, every account, told a story of someone else's fear: politicians bought, resources stolen, cities destroyed. "This isn't just business, Greg," Sarah said, compiling the files into a single database. "This is war. And you were its general." He turned away, feeling the words cut deeper than any knife. "I was a pawn," he finally answered. "The generals are them. And it was time to make them lose." The plan was insane: use their own internal access codes to log into Lance Capital's closed server, extract the entire archive of deals, and send it to several international journalism centers at once. If they lingered even a moment, they would be found. If they didn't give everything, their history would be erased. The night before the operation, they had met with a man Sarah only called Cobalt, a former NSA cyber expert. "You understand that after this, you won't be able to go out under your own name?" he asked, taking a deep drag on his cigarette. "And after they're done with me, I won't be able to go out at all," Gregory replied. They entered the office at night through the underground parking garage. Everything felt unreal: the sterile hallways, the dead doors, the footsteps that sounded like heartbeats in their ears. Cobalt worked quickly, Sarah held the door, and Gregory stood in front of the monitor, typing in his old code. The screen flashed green. Then an endless stream of files. Numbers, dates, names. He saw the names of people he had once considered untouchable appear on the monitor. And his own. "2 more minutes," Cobalt whispered. At that moment, the sound of an elevator honked in the corridor. A chill ran down Gregory's spine. He realized, there was no more time. "Take everything you have and leave now," he shouted. Cobalt pressed enter, the data went through a secure channel. Somewhere in Paris, London, and Washington, journalists were already receiving the key that could destroy the Lance Capital empire. The office door opened. Matthew Rhodes stood in the doorway. "I told you, Greg," his voice was quiet, almost sad. "Digging deeper is dangerous. And you forgot that sometimes deeper is the only way out," Gregory replied, and for the first time in many years his voice did not tremble. They looked at each other like two old players who realized, the game was over, and there would be no winner. The world was abuzz with news within hours. International media outlets published documents that no one had dared to imagine in the open: offshore accounts, accounts to finance coups, secret meetings with dictators, arms contracts. The name Lance Capital became synonymous with betrayal, corruption, and blood. Gregory watched the reports from a small room in Berlin, with a window overlooking a narrow street with a coffee shop where he drank cheap coffee every day under a different name. Sarah disappeared within the first week of the publication. He didn't ask where. Cobalt, they said, had been seen in Latin America. He managed to get a short message on a secure channel: "Alice is safe. Don't look for us." He reread those words dozens of times. Each time he felt both relief and emptiness. His own face was now on every wanted list, officially on charges of financial fraud, unofficially for destroying a system that had fed the world's most powerful for years. He could never return home again. But deep down, he knew that home no longer existed. In the evenings, he would sit on the roof of his house, looking at the stars, and catching himself thinking that they were the same as those above Manhattan. Somewhere across the ocean, Alice might be looking at them too. And even though the world between them was now divided by lies, fear, and death, at this moment he felt he had done the right thing. And yet the question remained, like a thorn under his skin, could one be rich and honest at the same time? He knew the answer for himself. His wealth had burned down with his old life. But the truth he had let out into the world also had a price that others had paid. He never knew if Alice would ever forgive him for what he had done, and what he had done before. And perhaps the real question was not whether you could redeem the past, but whether you could live with the fact that you could no longer change it. Gregory turned up the collar of his coat, looked up at the stars again, and whispered quietly. It wasn't a victory. But maybe it was a chance. Down below, the nighttime Berlin lived its own life, unaware that in the shadows of the narrow streets sat a man who had once destroyed his own world to let someone else see the truth.